I get started. We're at 7:01. So welcome everyone to the 21st annual Rutgers Jewish Film Festival. I'm Sarah Portilla. I'm the program coordinator for the Bildner Center and the Rutgers Jewish Film Festival, and we're so happy to see you all tonight. We have Amy Geller and Gerald Peary here with us, and we're going to be introducing them momentarily, but I just want to do a quick welcome. Thank everybody for joining us, and thank you to our sponsors and patrons, specifically like to mention the Karma Foundation and the Blanche and Irving Laurie Foundation. And I also wanted to mention that this is being recorded, and our other film talks are also being recorded, so you'll be able to find them on our film festival page under the biographies of each of our guests and the films that they are participating in. So I see our numbers are going up a little bit, but we will jump right in. How about that? So first, I'd like to welcome Amy Geller. Amy is an award-winning filmmaker who has dedicated more than a decade and a half to producing films. Her work has been broadcast and screened in the United States at prestigious film festivals around the world. Her productions include PBS miniseries, The War That Made America in 2005, and For the Love of Movies, the story of American film criticism in 2009. Her feature-length directorial debut was The Guys Next Door, co-directed by Ali Humanak, is that correct?
Yep.
Was released in 2016 and has been winning jury prize audience awards at film festivals across the country. It was also broadcast on PBS, the World Channel in 2018. She has served as artistic director of the Boston Jewish Film Festival, for which she received a High in the Hub Award for Jewish Leaders Under 45, and she currently teaches film production courses at Boston University. The Rabbi Goes West is co-directed with her husband, Jerry, who is sitting next to her, and was released in 2019. Jerry is a writer and director of two acclaimed feature documentaries, For the Love of Movies, the story of American film criticism in 2009, and Archie's Betty in 2015. Both played at film festivals, museums, and universities, and were televised on public television stations in the Boston area. He was a veteran film critic for the Boston Phoenix and acted in the 2013 feature film Computer Chess, which premiered at the Sundance Film Festival. Currently, he writes reviews for the website The Arts Fuse and is the programmer of the Boston University Cinematheque. So welcome, Jerry, welcome, Amy. Thank you for both being here. We are so happy to have you. This film was so, can I say fun? I found it very fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the characters. I know that they're real people, but I felt each of them like their own stories, like they're wanting to be told. And I was just curious, how did this film come about? How did you meet Rabbi Brooke and choose him to be the star or the subject of your film?
Okay. So we co-directed the film, but the impetus was from me. I wanted to make a film about my Judaism, about some aspect of Judaism. And so I thought, what do I really care about in Judaism? And one thing I came up was mezuzahs. I really love mezuzahs, and we have a mezuzah on our door. It's very important to me. And so I went on I thought, let's make something called the mezuzah movie. So I went on the internet and I read every single thing possible about mezuzahs in movies and literature, every funny reference, every serious reference. And then one day on the internet, I came across the true life story of this rabbi in Bozeman, Montana, named Chaim Brooke. And it explained that he has this mission to put a mezuzah on the home of every Jew in the state of Montana. And that is 2,000 Jews in a state that is, we say, is 14 times larger than Israel. It's like from Washington to Boston. It's unbelievably long. And he rides around putting up mezuzahs. So I thought, that's an interesting story. So I called him up on the phone. He answered the phone, and I said, he was very friendly. And I said, Rabbi Chaim, is there any chance we could come out, Amy and I, as a team, and watch you put up mezuzahs? He said, sure. He didn't ask anything else. Come on out. And so he invited us, and we knew nothing about Chaim. We knew nothing about, I can say we're secular Jews, about the Hasidic world. We knew nothing about Chabad, and we arrived in Bozeman with a camera and found out lots of things. So Amy, what happened then to our movie?
Well, we initially thought it would be this great short film about this Chabad, like Jerry said, this Chabad rabbi on this mission. And, films about people on missions can be very wonderful. And he was funny and irreverent and really smart and clever. And so we had this idea, okay, we arrived, we started filming with him. And then we discovered, we didn't know this before we hit the ground in Bozeman, Montana, that there was another synagogue, a progressive synagogue in the same town in Bozeman. And so when we discovered that, and we discovered that there was some tension between these two rabbis, we thought, okay, well, that needs to be part of the film. And sort of the film kind of kept growing. We also discovered we knew he was married, of course, when we started, but we didn't realize that he had, at the time, 3 children who were adopted. And over the course of the film, he and his wife, Javi, adopted 2 more kids. So one of the structures of the film is sort of, as the film progresses, you see them adopting another kid and then yet another kid towards the end of the film. So it was, like a lot of documentaries, you go in with an idea of what it might be, and then you discover real life and you follow the story as it unfolds, which are the kinds of films that we really like to make. So that's what we did.
And in the middle of the film, neo-Nazis suddenly threatened all the Jews of the state of Montana. And we went, what? And we added that in. That became part of the story, how the different rabbis reacted to the threat, a neo-Nazi threat.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that. First, when was your first contact with him? How long was the process from start to finish?
Well, I mean, like Jerry said, initially we contacted him, and within probably like a month of that initial call, we just flew out there with our cinematographer and started filming with him. I mean, he didn't want to talk about it. Like, he didn't want to have chats on the phone. He's just like, if you want to do it, come here. So we, I guess he's done a lot of media before, and, maybe he's had people say they want to do something and they just didn't do it. So he was totally open and very generous. But we started filming in July of
some year.
We
can't remember the years anymore. Pre-COVID.
Yeah,
pre-COVID, right?
COVID kind of scrambles your brain.
Yeah, when the rain was there.
But it was in July, and it took like
2016.
It took like 3 years. Yeah, 2016. That's right. Yeah, and then we returned. I think there was a total of 5 trips to Montana during a 3-year period of time, and then we also went to Crown Heights, Brooklyn, with Chaim as well during that 3-year period.
Yeah, there was a little more auditioning on the phone. When you make a documentary, just like a fiction film, you have to have, just like the right actors, you have to have the right people, or your movie stinks. So when I talked to Chaim on the phone, he was, as Amy said, extremely funny and sarcastic Jew, kind of like what I am. I appreciated that very much. But he also is very linear. Every time he said a sentence and went through to the end, and it didn't go off on tangents, which are bad for documentaries. And sorry, but some rabbis can be very boring, and they're talking this very sonorous, slow, didactic voice. He wasn't that at all. He was like a comedian from a Jewish comedian. So even without seeing him, he had all the ingredients that were ready for us to go out and take a chance and film him. And we'd also never been to Montana. Tell us about Montana.
Right. Never been to Montana, which was just unbelievably beautiful, and such a cinematic place to film it.
Yeah, you got the jackpot there with this charismatic guy and the backdrop of just the gorgeous ranges of Montana. I mean, I'm curious because you mentioned Whitefish already. The Whitefish, Montana is hundreds of miles away from Bozeman, right? And was there resentment from the folks in Whitefish that when you went there, you went with him, right? So you filmed him in going to Whitefish, or did you only film him in Bozeman? Because you have coverage of him in Whitefish, Montana also, right?
Yeah. No, we didn't. Yeah, no, we didn't film him in Whitefish. We filmed two other rabbis in.
Okay.
So we heard about his trip to Whitefish, which a controversial trip in the middle of the neo-Nazis, both his point of view and the point of view of a conservative woman rabbi who was in the city. So often in our film, we have kind of opposing points of view and let the audience decide where they stand. We don't say, okay, that person was right, that person was wrong. That was a big strategy in our movie, right, Amy?
Right. I mean, just to, basically some other people had shot footage, which we then acquired, which helped us to be able to tell the story.
Right. Okay. Because I was wondering about whether you were feeling at all as Jewish filmmakers, like, were you feeling any of that tension of the anti-Semitism that was being, I guess, these rabbis and this community was really being attacked, and we actually the rabbi from Whitefish has actually come and spoken at Rutgers also, and she's originally from New Jersey. So we've heard that story, and I was wondering, did you feel any of that, or was it more where the filmmakers were looking at this from the behind the lens?
Yeah, because we weren't like on the ground, we didn't experience that. And I also think like we were very careful because we knew that, I mean, Francine was very generous and very public about what happened, but I also think that she needed some time after that event was happening, and we didn't want to just be like another news agency in there, sort of taking advantage of the situation. So we didn't actually go to Whitefish to talk to her about that until, I don't know, several months after, like 4 or 5 months after.
Well, but I guess we felt it in terms of just the tension in the room filming when Francine tells her story, because it's so palpable how she lives it as the horrors of having neo-Nazis, and of course we are neo-Nazi haters, so as good Jews, we're vigilant about that. So that was very important that we put that into the movie.
Right. I think it was a very powerful piece. And you also veiled the tension between the rabbis about what the right way of handling the situation is, because there are many different opposing views about the best way to handle neo-Nazis, handle, Jews dealing with neo-Nazis. There's many, many layers of that. And I'm sure there are going to be more questions as the chat goes on. So everyone, if you have questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. We will get to them. We're going to do our best to get to as many as possible. I am curious, the feedback you've gotten from the rabbis that you interviewed, Rabbi Brooke, but also Rabbi Francine, and how did they feel that they were all represented in the voice that they wanted to be represented in?
Do you want to answer that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, besides Chaim initially, most nobody really wanted to be, they were very generous and were a part of our film, but I think they were all suspicious of how we would represent them, which is, understandable. This is a world where media can be manipulated and people can be made to look and say things that they didn't say. And that we were very honest from the get-go that we were not making, we were trying to make a balanced film, in quotes, because I think I struggle with that word, but, a non-judgmental film in which we allowed all perspectives, and that we weren't sort of imposing an agenda or our values onto the film. We were really, the film was very much our journey as filmmakers and trying to understand this Jewish community. And so I think, to be fair, they agreed very generously to let us film them, but they were suspicious. And so I think, do you want to answer how they?
Yeah. So I think basically, but we did make one big choice, which is we chose to have Chaim Brooke, the Chabad rabbi, be the central character who we were following. And I think, none of the other rabbis were that happy about that. They would have they would have chosen, at least one of the rabbi has said publicly, I won't say which, why didn't you make a movie about me? That would be much better than about Chaim. And the other two rabbis, feel, I think they were treated fairly in the movie, but they wish, I think, that we hadn't bothered to make a film about Chabad, to give Chabad too much central place. That's the honest, but that was our decision. So
absolutely. I mean,
yes.
So a little bit more about Rabbi Brook. We meet him and his 5 adopted children. Did they ever talk about the challenges of raising a multiracial adopted family in Montana versus raising them in, say, Crown Heights, where, like, being a part of the, like, central Chabad movement as opposed to, an outpost or a shaliach somewhere else? Did you ever have those conversations with them?
Well, there's a limit to how much we can put into the film. So
right, of course.
So yeah, so outside of the film, there's probably a little bit more. I think that their little boy who's African American who lives with them in Bozeman I think they would say too, has had a good life in Bozeman. He's been treated very nicely. Everybody loves him. So he hasn't to this time experienced much racial tension. But Chaim did tell us one day a story that they went to another city, and when they got out of the airport, there were some African Americans there, and suddenly their son was really looking at them with interest and making a connection. And they talk to him all the time about being African American. They don't pretend that he's not. It's important for him, that they say, for his African American identity to be there. Just quickly, when they have gone, Chaim has said, when they've gone back to Crown Heights, yes, they've gotten people kind of looking at them from the Jewish community. Who is this, Hasidic rabbi with a black child? But I don't think it's gone beyond that. There's more, I think Chaim would say it's more that people, quote, are not used to seeing that. So he has never told me, I don't know if Amy, a story of prejudice against this boy. No.
Would you say that Rabbi Chaim's goals were the same as yours in this film process? So obviously, he chose to be the subject of the film, right? You entered into an agreement that you were going to be following him and filming him. But were there things that he wanted to get across that were maybe different from what you wanted to portray in the film? Whether it's, the advocating for adoption or just, the Chabad mission as a whole. I'm just curious if there was not conflict per se, but just different goals that you kind of had to come together on.
That's a good question. Yeah. I think we were very honest. When we started to know that the movie wasn't just going to be about him, as a central, he was going to still be the central character, but he wasn't going to be the only character. We were very honest and transparent with him about that. And we also said, we're not making a propaganda film about Chabad. It's not what we're doing. This film is independently funded. We're independent filmmakers, so we were totally transparent with him about that. He knew we were talking to and interviewing, Rabbi Ed and some of the other, he definitely knew we were talking and interviewing to some of his congregants or his community members. Mm-hmm. That was probably the most tension, to be honest, because we did kind of ask them tough questions around, these cult issues. We had heard from various people that, several people think that Chabad is a cult. And so, we felt like we really needed to ask those questions and have people from his community speak to that issue, because these are people that, care about Judaism in Montana. They're very much invested in Chabad, and they, attend various things of Chaim's, and they really value having Chabad there. They also like having other ways of being Jewish. That was the biggest kind of mind-blowing thing for me, was that there were all these different ways of being Jewish in Montana. Like, what? I really had no expectation that there would be very little there. And in fact, I was proven wrong. So I would say that Chaim he knew from the get-go, but he, like everybody else, was also suspicious, because there's been a lot of negative portraits of Hasidism in the mainstream media, some of them legitimate, some of them not. And he didn't know, he didn't know us. And so he had to trust that we were going to make a film that was fair. And I think that it wasn't until we started showing the film and he really felt like, oh, this is a fair film. And he feels he's attended various events with us, and he's spoken with the film, and he definitely supports the film now.
Has there been a strong response from the Chabad movement as a whole, or is it like what types of audiences have watched this film, and what types of responses have you gotten based on who the audience is?
Well, we're very proud to say that the film, as people seem to really like the film, and this has gone across the spectrum from very, very, I guess, progressive, perhaps lefty audiences, like we've showed it at things like the Boston Film Festival and the Boston Jewish Film Festival and the San Francisco Jewish Film Festival, and the audiences were terrific. And then we've also shown it to, I think, 13 Chabads, and the Chabad response has been the same as Chaim's finally, which is, and I guess we do take this as a nice compliment. This is the first film that we've ever seen made by non-Chabad people, which treats us fairly. That's the big thing. That's what they think. Yes, there are criticisms in the film, but we are not. This is not a film that is out to attack Chabad, and it isn't. And I think that is different because we have seen other films, especially about Hasidic world, which are extremely negative in every way, and I guess are maybe meant for secular audiences who already hate the Hasidic world. And those are sometimes quite easy. I have this thing, I don't like documentaries in which you watch them in order to affirm what you already believe. So this movie is an attempt to stretch people a bit. And I guess going back to your really good question a minute ago, Sarah, what did we have in common with Chaim? I think both of us wanted to clear up certain misconceptions about the Chabad world, which we learned about as we made the movie because we knew nothing about Chabad. But when we go back to talk to our secular friends and hear what they said about Chabad, some of the things were completely wrong. And so our movie is partly there to clear up things, and we also like everybody to get their best shot and be able to say what they want to say. So this Chaim is saying what we want him to have his best explanation of why Chabad is terrific, which he of course believes. And then again, you in the audience go, God, Chabad is okay, or that guy is crazy. That's a cult, and I don't care what he says. But that's, again, we want the audience to figure things out.
Did it change your own personal views about this?
Oh, you just froze.
We just froze.
Oh, Sarah, you just froze.
Oh, shoot.
So I can ask her question. This is Karen from the
Karen.
background.
Have different perspectives on how to be Jewish.
Sarah, did you know you froze for a minute?
Oh, no.
So you were asking about if it had changed the filmmakers' own attitudes.
Yes, your own attitudes.
About Orthodox.
Sorry about that.
Or Hasidic Jews.
Hasidic Jews, or even just different types of Jewish representations that are out there. Did your perspective change at all?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think there was just a lot that we didn't know. And I think that, when you don't have all the facts and all the information, you definitely jump to some conclusions. And, so I think that we had sort of misconceptions a little bit about Hasidism, definitely about Montana, definitely about being Jewish in Montana. And so those were really kind of blown out of the water. And that, I think, is the beauty of making movies, is that, especially when you make long format documentaries, you have the ability to really go deep into a subject and learn a lot. I mean, we also read a bunch of books, and we talked to a bunch of people outside of the film. We were very, the concept or the conceit of the film was that we weren't going to bring in experts and outside people. It was very much set in Montana. It was this particular world. We didn't want to have sort of, the narration or other experts coming in, but we did our homework outside the film just to educate ourselves. we didn't just take the words of the people that were in our film. We did our own research, and so we learned a lot. And we, like Jerry said, I mean, we also did something that I think was very different for me as a filmmaker. We showed the film to a small group of sort of trusted filmmakers, editors, some Jewish, some not, during the making of the film. So like we would cut a version of the film, it was rough, and then we would show it to people, and then they would have questions or be confused or have all these misconceptions. And then we would be like, oh, geez, we didn't think of that, or that's interesting because that's not our experience. Let's go back and ask those questions. And so we really sort of, it was a very much a film in process. And normally I don't like to show an unfinished cut to people. I want it to be like a perfect film or close to perfect before I show people. And I will never do that again. It was super helpful to be able to get input along the way, because you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Right, absolutely.
If I can understand, I'm going to ask Amy something. Amy, dear, I think she was also asking a question about our own religion and how you felt about it.
You mean like have we become more religious?
Yeah, I think.
No, I wouldn't say, no, that's not, no, I don't.
I'm sorry, I thought that was your
No,
question.
I don't have, you know, I mean, if you want to answer that, you can, but I was more thinking about your own perspective, not your own observance.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Got it.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Then that was the right answer.
Yeah, then I would say, I mean, you know, to be honest, we are, you know, not affiliated with a synagogue. We, you know, don't attend a Chabad. We actually, you know, whenever we're in Montana, we would definitely go to Chaim's. And we're, you know, still very much in touch with Chaim, but I would say that, you know, we're not more religious necessarily, but I think we're more respectful of religious people. That has definitely been an outcome of making the film.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Neat to talk to a bunch of rabbis and have great conversations. That was a lot of fun. And when we saw,
super smart.
You know, I mean, one of the big things is when you go to Chaim's synagogue, the people love being there. That's undeniable, and you could feel it in the air. And I've said, I'm not, as Amy said, we're not shul attenders, but I could feel the spirit in a shul in a way that I often in my life just scratch my head. Why do people go to synagogue? I was like, oh, a corned beef Jew, and you know, I know all the sports figures who are Jewish and all the.
But a mezuzah on your door, so you know.
But the mezuzah is there. I am very Jewish.
There are a few questions about Chaim and his children, where they go to school. Bet Epstein is asking, presumably there's no yeshiva in Montana. Where are they going? And also, Maxine is asking about how many members does Chaim Synagogue have? What, you know? So I guess a little more, just some details about the basics on how they are making their lives there and what success have they had.
So the kids go, well, the youngest kids go to public schools, and because there are no, you know, there's no religious schools in Montana, and they do very well there and are actually, you know, certainly some of the only obvious Jews in the community. And so they, you know, talk about Judaism in school. And, you know, I think it's a really nice cross-cultural experience. But they also, you know, study online, and they have like online courses that they take. And at the end of the film, or towards the end of the film, the oldest, Shoshana, the oldest, does go to yeshiva in Florida. So at a certain age, they will then, you know, go to some kind of religious school. I'm not sure necessarily where, but in her case, it was in Florida. Some of them may go to New York. So yeah, that's happening. And then what was the other question?
Oh, the question about membership. So Chaim would say we don't have members. That's a basic Chabad line. I don't know what the people are, but they're not, members is not the term, because you don't pay to belong. You don't belong.
How many mezuzahs has he put up?
He's put up hundreds of
Yeah.
mezuzahs. But he probably.
Do you feel like he can claim those people as his people?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, he doesn't necessarily claim them, but yeah.
But that's like one reading is that he's doing that all for propaganda, trying to pull people into his shul. That's one way to look at it. Another view is that he's doing it because he's wants to spread Judaism, and the spirit of Judaism is more important. That's another view. And another third view is that he's doing it in order to bring the Messiah to come, which is where we are, I can say, very far apart from Chaim. Because I've actually publicly said to Chaim, I don't want the Messiah to come. Because he says in the film several times, doesn't everybody want the Messiah to come? And I absolutely do not want. I don't know if Amy, do you want a Messiah coming around?
For some reason, I mean, I just struggle with that notion, but it's like obviously a different lens that I don't have.
Yeah.
But on one hand, sure, it would be nice if there was peace on earth and everybody got along and all that stuff. But it just doesn't. It's just not my worldview. So. But it's very much Chaim's, and there in his mind that's the focus. That's a big reason why he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you a new just a new lens to look at things, right? When you speak to somebody who just has that different idea of how to bring about peace on earth, right? I have a question here from Roberta Canerick. She said that they didn't even know that there was a Chabad in Bozeman when they visited Bozeman, I guess last summer in 2019. And she said there was a new young rabbi that was hired there, and she wanted to know if you had the chance to meet that new rabbi that was at the Beth Shalom. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, we know Amber because she was in our film and we talked to her, but I don't.
She's the cantor. No, there is a new rabbi. We haven't met them.
We haven't met them. We know they were in the middle of a hiring process the last time we were there, but we didn't meet them. So I'm glad to hear that there's a new rabbi.
And Ed Staffman, who was the rabbi who you see in our film, retired, and he now is just elected to the state legislature as a extremely liberal Democrat in a mostly red state. He is super blue, and that's where he is right now. If you wonder what happened to Ed, there he is.
Okay.
His third career. He's going for career number 3, which is amazing.
Lawyer, rabbi, state legislator.
Amazing. I mean, obviously somebody who is not afraid to be working hard. Those are all very intense roles, no matter which way you look at them. There is a question also about, it says, were Rabbi Brooke and I guess Rabbi Francine, the conservative rabbi, asked about what unites them and like how they can work together, particularly in light of the neo-Nazis in Montana who seem to hate all Jews. So I guess they were hoping that there was some sort of something that keeps them on the same playing field.
I mean, I think they agree that they want to connect Jews to Judaism. That's sort of where they agree. How they do that, the approaches are different, but I think that's the agreement. I don't know if there was a coming. I mean, there were aspects where there were different events, and there have been since where they have come together as a full Jewish community in the state. But I'm not sure if that happened around particularly the neo-Nazi events.
Yeah. If I could disagree with my dear partner, I don't think they've really come together.
There have been other Chabads that have opened up since you were filming also, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think so. But I think Ed Staffman, again, sometimes does meet with Chaim and over events, even though they, not the best of friends, but they do things in Bozeman. But I think Francine and Chaim are very, very far apart. They're not.
Well, also Bozeman and Whitefish aren't nearby each other, right? I mean, so that's they don't have to engage on a regular basis in some sort of, community. They're not going to run into each other at the Hanukkah candle lighting ceremony or something like that, right?
Yeah, well, that was sort of what I was thinking, that there would be some overlap there, but yeah, no, you're right. I mean, they're like, what is it, 7-hour drive apart?
And yet, the thing we learned quickly in the world of Montana is that it means nothing in Montana to get into your car and drive 6 hours someplace else. It's a normal activity. So I think people actually do come from Whitefish to Bozeman. But I think my guess is when Francine comes to Bozeman, she does not come knocking at Chaim's door. That is my guess.
How many Chabads are there now in Montana?
3.
There are 3?
Yeah. So there's.
And are they all connected to each other where they're working? Are they relatives? Usually it's like there's somebody who's connected and they're
Yeah, so so Chaim is sort of the director of the state, and so he oversees all of them, but I mean all three of them. So yeah, there's Missoula and Whitefish, and then in
Okay.
Whitefish, Javi's younger sister. Javi's the eldest of I think 9 children, and her younger sister is there with her husband. So yeah, there's a little bit of
Yeah.
there's some family connection there.
Somebody is asking where he gets glatt kosher food in Montana.
Okay, well, he orders it from Minneapolis. He has a huge freezer, which is like a cut scene from our movie. We never showed him Chaim's tour of his freezer tour, but that's not in the film.
I was going to ask you if there was something special that you had to cut that you were like, it would just be so fun to put this in.
Yeah,
the
freezer scenes were great.
But they I don't know, maybe once a month, a truck comes from Montana, and the various kosher Jews who live in Bozeman meet it along a highway, and they pay, and it's unloaded. It sounds like a drug deal, but it's not a drug deal. It's people getting kosher food, and we were there for at least one Shabbat, and the food was extraordinary, was plentiful, more than plentiful, and delicious kosher food. But I know that is something that Chaim, who likes to eat, wishes there was a kosher restaurant. When we shot in New York City, we treated Chaim one night. There's a new kosher barbecue in Brooklyn, and Chaim went to town on whatever the barbecued beef, because you can't get anything like that in Bozeman. Yes,
We do tend to be spoiled living on the East Coast, whether it's Boston or New Jersey. I mean, any local supermarket tends to have enough for those who need it. So it's it's a very foreign concept to think what somebody's going to have to meet on the side of the road and do some exchange of frozen meats. It's a different way of thinking about being Jewish in America, right?
Definitely.
I have a question also, just for, I don't know if this is controversial or not. How is it working with your spouse on a film?
It is definitely challenging. I mean, on one level, it's great because you have a partner, and making independent films is really hard. So having somebody there to be like the cheerleader to push you forward when you're feeling really depressed or doubting whether what's going to happen next is great. But it's also challenging because you never leave the film alone. I mean, it's like in your head, it's in your home, it's in your
dinner.
It's very hard to have any boundaries with it. And we are both very opinionated and very stubborn about our opinions. So, we definitely clash, like particularly in the edit room, not when we're not around our subjects. We would clash about like, just the choices we make in terms of the structure of the film. We also had 2 very good editors who were also opinionated. So, that's part of the creative process where, you have a team of people that you trust that may not agree with you. And ultimately the film is better for it, but it can cause a lot of problems.
Yeah. And one big thing is Amy is more of a perfectionist than I am. I am definitely a person who wants to finish something and get on with it. So I insisted the film was done at a certain point. That was it. And Amy, no, it's not. It would, like a dog with a bone, would not give in. We had to edit it and edit and edit on and on and on. It was when I thought it was finished. Anyway, Amy was totally right, because the film was 10% or 15% better because of her insistence that we must go on and go on and go on until we reach this level. So
you need a new metaphor. Dog with a bone is not.
Dog with a bone is not a good one. A woman dog with a bone? No, I don't know.
No, that's
not good either. Okay, I don't know. I'm trying.
Feminist. But I can see that. Well, that it was. You can see that there was a lot of thought and care put into this film to make it as fair as possible. I thought it felt like you took great care to make sure that everybody was represented how they, I guess, hope to be. And I guess that's, I know that there was some mistrust as far as how, coming in as filmmakers, but I hope people were satisfied, because when I saw the results, I thought, wow, this just is so even-handed. So I think that a lot of people felt that way. Somebody's asking about a cup of salvation was mentioned. I don't remember. I don't remember this part of. And and they were asking, isn't that a Christian-based thing? But I'm not familiar.
Yeah. Well, we're not theologians. We don't know.
We would
but
not
it was,
be the right.
But it was definitely Ed. It said it was part of a Reformed service.
Right.
This is the cup of salvation. He sings this song, and believe me, it was not. He didn't slip a Christian song in there.
Yeah.
He said it was Jewish. So.
Yeah. Custom.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that I covered.
Your viewers are watching it with a real with like a critical eye, which is great. We like that.
Yeah, it was not something that I had remembered. So somebody's saying that salvation is from Havdalah, which I was thinking like, so yeah, it's probably a Havdalah service, something with a cup of Elijah or something along those lines. Somebody is mentioning a movie on Netflix called Outback Rabbis, which is. Have you heard of?
We actually haven't seen it. I didn't know it was on Netflix, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't.
It wasn't the last time I looked, but that's great to hear that they got a Netflix deal. Yeah, we do know about it. I've seen the trailer, but I haven't seen the whole film, and I think it's like my sense of it. Again, I haven't seen it, so I can't totally speak to it, and I would love to hear what if folks have seen it, what they think. But my sense was that it's more sort of like the fish out of water story, and not as sort of detailed in terms of how Chabad is working within this community. But I could be wrong. I haven't seen it. So,
but now it's on Netflix. We have Netflix.
I guess now we can all
we will watch it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Jerry, did I see that you were at Rutgers at one point?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I was going to throw that in at the end. So I was a professor many moons ago at Livingston College, Rutgers University, across the river in Piscataway.
It's not far. The kids take the bus all the time. It's not they bus between all those campuses right here in New Brunswick, Piscataway.
So I was a film professor many a year ago and had a wonderful 3 years at Rutgers, and then I moved to where I live now I quit being a professor for a while to be a journalist, a film critic. And so I said goodbye to New Jersey, but I lived in Metuchen, and so I could teach at Piscataway. Yes.
Fabulous. Well, we're so happy to have you back in New Jersey via Zoom. I mean, we wish it was in person. I did have one more question for you, just on the subject of you going from you were the critic side to the filmmaker side. Is that, how does that feel? Is that, going from the, I guess I'm the critic, I get to tell you what I think, to the, I'm making this film, I wonder what people think sort of side of things?
Yeah, well, it's, I don't know. Amy will tell me I'm crazy, but I still don't think it was that much of a change. It was something, knowing about how to structure a film review feels to me a bit like the way you edit it in the film, the way you set up the film. And having seen, as a film critic, thousands of films, that certainly helped me when I started making them. It's in my blood how a film structured. If the question is, how do I feel getting a bad review? I don't like it any more than someone who a filmmaker who I give a bad review to. But if the argument is well made and there's reasons, then I live with it. That's okay. That's all right.
But I would say, like, he didn't, initially he had no idea what was involved in filmmaking. Right. He thought it was like a hobby, and it's a profession. So, it's, in the first movie he made was, I produced it and he directed it, about the history of American film criticism, of which there was no book, there was no prior content describing this. So it was a 100-year history that we told from scratch, and it was an unbelievable process. So it was definitely like a very ambitious film to take on as a first-time filmmaker. Yeah. And Jerry learned a lot from that process. Yes. And, now he's on his third film. So, he's continued to learn a lot. So that's been great. But yeah,
I didn't know anything. Yeah.
Now you're always like,
but you can admit it.
Right. Like, how did this happen? It was like, because it was happening in the background. You just weren't aware of it.
Yeah, I would say, what do people do all day making a film? It seems so easy. You have this film and you put it together. Yeah. And she wanted to kill me because you do stuff every second of every day, and serious things, which I didn't get.
Well, that leads us to, I guess, maybe one of our final questions is what's next? What's the next project that you're working on? And somebody actually asked what's next, and have you considered follow-up with the other, denominations of Judaism as far as other, film subjects?
It's funny, every film I make, people want to sort of get the sequel or the next chapter. And,
Sure.
I don't know. It's like it's like your baby for so long, and then you sort of, you get attached to a new subject matter. So yeah, do you want to talk about, we're just sort of, it's a very early stages and we're developing a new idea, but we can tell you a little bit about it.
So actually it is something coming out of this film. So one of the rabbis in the film was a guy named Rabbi Alan Setcher, who is a Reform rabbi, who is the oldest rabbi in the state of Montana, and who was sort of friends with everybody, including Chaim. And Alan Setcher is 86 years old, and he called one day and said to Amy and he said, I have a favor to do. What's your favor? He said, I want you to, before I leave this earth, I'd like my story to be told. Oh, okay, wow. That's really, what is your story? So Alan Setcher in 1964 was one of 16 rabbis who, on the order of Martin Luther King, went to St. Augustine, Florida, to help to desegregate St. Augustine. And they were arrested and jailed, and it's the, quote, the biggest mass arrest of rabbis in the history of America. So it's his story and the story of at least one or two other rabbis who were there on this march. So it's basically in the world of Black Lives Matter, we, Amy and I, feel very strongly that Jews should be there in the background, but supporting the African Americans in their struggles. And this is a great little moment of Jewish history when rabbis did exactly this in a really courageous, powerful way, and a model for today. So we're thinking of making probably a short film. We ask if anybody out there wants to help fund this film, talk to Sarah, and
we'll direct you, sure.
Send our email, because we would love to make this great film about Judaism.
Have you, one of the other films we're showing in our film festival is the Shared Legacies film. And I know that also has some parallels, I guess, to what you're talking about. So
yeah, we've just saw that actually, and yeah, there's a tiny little bit about St. Augustine.
There's so many stories to tell. It's just amazing. Well, good luck with the project, and if anybody reaches out, I will be sure to pass them straight on to you. And I just want to thank you guys so much. This was so fun. I personally learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience did too. And everybody who gets to watch this afterwards will also. So
thank you. All these people for being here. We really appreciate it. Great questions.
Fabulous. Have a great night. And we'll hopefully see you again with your new project.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.